All right. Okay.
Beautiful. Now we're there.
All right. Okay, Andy, thank you so much for doing this, man. I do really, really appreciate it.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. I'm glad the schedules worked out. I'm gonna give my little
Yeah,
nudge here.
that's good. That's good. Yeah, I know. I got my daughter fed, bathed, and into bed in record time. So
I felt bad. I was like, hey, can you do it at this time?
no, no, it's
But
cool. It's
realized
cool.
the difference was what it was.
Yeah, I mean, 8 o'clock's her bedtime anyway, so that's cool. So how's the start of the year been for you?
So busy. I'm
Good,
just
good.
I'm drowning in it. It's really good. It's the thing that I remind myself every day. I'm like, hey, you wanted this.
Yeah.
This. So yeah, it's super busy. It's super great between the new album coming out. It's a big
Hmm.
one this year. Woodshed Guitar Experience, which is the guitar retreat that I've been hosting every year.
Yeah.
And the beginning of the year always has the Shiprocked Cruise Rock Cruise Festival thing that we do.
Okay.
And yeah, man, it's and then of course NAM. So it's just like
Yes.
the
How
the
uh
front of
how
this year has just been chaos,
Yeah,
man.
how was Nat? I was supposed to go to Nan this year, but we're moving house, and I thought if I drop on my wife, by the way, I'm going to LA for a week.
Yeah, that's
No,
not it.
that's not going to happen. So
No,
next year.
no, no.
So how was it?
It was really good. I'll give you a very honest answer. One, there's less product
Yeah.
on the floor than I've ever seen.
Okay.
Kind of a bummer, kind of a negative. Two, this number two here, it's a positive. It's the most people I've seen in years.
Well,
Like
that's good.
it was packed, and the energy was there. Right.
Yeah.
I think what we're going to see though is what will be what will be NAM's purpose if major manufacturers don't show up.
Okay.
You got no Fender, you got no Gibson, like they're
Yeah.
not there, right? You got no PRS, they're not
Yeah.
there. Sir came, but it was like such a bare bones, it was just like a opportunity for, them to have some artists to sign and shake hands, and John
Yeah.
was there and stuff. But like they
Nice.
had three guitars and one amp, and it was like it's like
Yeah.
nobody's doing the mega thing because that's a bit antiquated, isn't it? Like the
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
of a trade show in 2024 is a bit antiquated. So, if NAM shifts its purpose into more of a fan con kind of thing, then
Mm.
I think that's really where the magic is, right?
Yeah. I mean, I assume it'd also give room for more independent manufacturers to claim a little piece of floor space.
Yeah, you would think that, except NAM keeps pricing those young upcoming startups out.
Yeah.
Like it's so expensive to just breathe the oxygen at NAM, much
Mm.
less rent a booth, and they charge you for the power strips.
Son of a bitch.
So it's like if you're a startup company, are you going to spend money on that? Are
Well,
you
I
going to
guess, I
spend
guess
money
not.
on manufacturing? It's like
Yeah.
it's just an interesting spot. I would love to, if anybody at NAM is watching this, give me a call. I want to sit in your board meeting and give you the actual reality of what's going on, not good or bad, just like,
Okay.
hey, this is working, this is not. So call me.
Call him. Yeah, man. Okay, cool. So, I mean, it sounds like everything's on the uptick. I mean, I first heard of you and I saw some of your playing, I think it was on a Ben Ella video about 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, most likely. Yeah, that's before I
And
really got into the internet.
yeah, I think it was you just got into YouTube. I think you were still kind of kicking around 10, 15K subs. And yeah, it's like, shit, the fucking bed, man. This guy's blazing.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I was super late to the internet game because I've spent most of my life, obviously trying to polish and perfect and constantly chase music as a
Mm,
goal in and of itself. But then, most of my 20s, 30s has all been touring.
mm.
Like playing like studio stuff, playing
Yeah.
live, like the idea of like I'm gonna have a camera and do a live stream. I was like, what is that? Who does that, right?
Yeah.
But then as the world goes into lockdown, that
Mm.
becomes the only way to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that forced everybody, all the creatives, to kind of rethink what they were doing. I mean, I thought it was a great I don't know what it was like in the States, but we kind of had we think we had three separate lockdowns. And that first lockdown, I had some internet guitar lessons with Carl Verheyen. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, yeah.
It was crazy. But I thought it was kind of a double-edged sword in that it had its amazing benefits and, kind of sucked in some ways because we couldn't get out and play, but we kind of made the most of it.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. Like it was the hard reset. There was a lot of bad things that went around. I mean, most of it was bad. But finding ways to continue to make music and share the love, and I mean, that's where I wrote the majority of my record.
Mm,
In COVID, I wrote
yeah,
54, 53 something demos, and
nice.
then chose the new album from those demos.
That's cool. That's cool. So, like the whole kind of cornerstone of this podcast was all about sort of getting better. Um, what's your take on getting better? What does it mean to you, and how's it changed over the last 10, 20 years?
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is what it means to me today is not what it meant
Mm.
yesterday, and it's definitely not what it's going to mean tomorrow. Hell, it might not mean the same thing in 5 hours, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think that there's something that's really been rolling around my brain lately, which is the application of what you know, being able to do with what you know how to do and extract the most musicality from that
Hmm.
versus thinking you need one more lick or one more
Yeah.
technique or one more cycle. It's like, are you really making as much music as you can with what you've got? Or do
Yeah.
you think you need to, go transcribe another solo? It's like, man,
Mm.
don't get me wrong, transcriptions are great. I mean, I just posted a video of me playing, I don't know, Stairway to Heaven yesterday
Oh,
and
yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Glass Prison from Dream Theater before that. It's like learning things from other players is never not going to be the way to do it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the way to do it. It's like you go down the buffet of life and the musicality and you just take all the pieces and the bites from the things that you like and all of a sudden
Hmm.
you your own voice, right? So that's the thing. But what I want to say is I guess I'm trying to find out wording on it and not sound like a tool bag. Is and I've got I've no players, and I've got players that message me, or maybe that are in my Patreon.
Mm.
Got players, across the world send me messages like, "Oh man, how do you do this lick?" Or what do I need to do to get better at the X, Y, and Z? And I just go, "Hey man, like, can you use what you've got? And if not, you don't need more stuff,
Mm. Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
getting the most out of pentatonic. Like if I said this, if I said, man, Eric Johnson is a really inside player, basically everything he does is diatonic.
Yeah.
That sounds super backhanded. That
Yeah.
sounds oversimplifying, and it sounds like I'm diminishing that. But when you hear Eric Johnson play, you go, that is an absolute master of creativity,
Yeah.
sound,
Yeah.
approach. And if you go, hey man, everything he's doing is pentatonic, and you blow it off like that, and then you
Mm.
hear it, you go, wow, I'm
Yeah.
astounded that all of that is pentatonic.
Yeah.
It's the perspective of that, right? Because people blow off A minor pentatonic box one or
Mm.
G major pentatonic at the 12th fret. Everybody's like, oh, I mean, I know my pentatonics. And then I hear them play, and it's like, you don't know your pentatonics because you don't
Mm.
sound like you're playing music. You sound like
Yeah.
you're playing in notes where you think the right note is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not music.
Mm.
So, a lot of what we talk about now, or a lot of what I'm kind of obsessed with these days, is how musical are you?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you need to learn another set of Coltrane changes that move in thirds.
Yeah.
You can't play the blues. You
Yeah.
don't need to go near Countdown or Giant Steps with a 10-foot pole, right? Like, you can't play a blues line that sounds convincing. And I'm not saying the blues is that. I mean, the metal. Take metal. Like this is what's great about what I'm talking about is it crosses genres. I hear so many metal players that sound stagnant, and they've got a lot of technical facility.
Hmm.
Nothing sound. It's like they're using the same plugins that the guy next to them uses. Everybody sounds the same. They always stand out. And I go, well, yeah. Well, if you argue with yourself and you red team yourself, you go, hey, Dimebag Darrell.
Mm.
He stands out, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's attitude, there's swag, there's personality, there's musicality,
Yeah.
right? Like there's all these extra things. And this is what I mean about getting better. At music school, whether it be the University of Tennessee, go Vols, right? Or it's, you know, Belmont in Nashville or, you know, wherever, right?
Yep.
Insert famous music school. It's really easy for a teacher to teach you rhythm because that is undeniable math.
Yeah.
This is a 16th note or it's not a 16th note, right? Now you can make it as complicated as you want. You can be like, hey man, I'm playing a 15, 16 or, you know, whatever. But like eventually you're going to go, this is correct or it's not correct. Okay. Agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
super easy to teach harmony because that is a major seventh or it's a dominant seventh.
Yeah.
Now that can keep getting more complicated,
Yeah.
but eventually it is proven or it's not proven, right? This is all. So if this is the case and we have all these musicians every year going to all these music schools, we should just be swamped in Eddie Van Halen's and Charlie Parker's and Willie Nelson's everywhere, but we don't have them.
Yeah.
So what's missing? What's missing is the thing that nobody wants to teach because you can't grade it. First of all, you can't say good or bad.
Yeah.
And that is sound, musicality, timbre, tone, all of these things that make music what it is other than a math equation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So like this is where I'm living and spending most of my time these days. Like when I went back and learned the Stairway Solo again, I learned it 40 times in my life. I was like, oh, there's a nice little rub of an open string that I never caught before, you know? And it's like, there's always another layer when you're listening with that intent detail of musicality. Like that, I think is the thing that if you want to get better, man, there's YouTube lessons and subscriptions everywhere. They're going to teach you where to put your fingers. That doesn't make you a better musician. So that's a big answer.
Yeah, I know. I think that was, I think Pat Metheny alluded to something recently. He said, you know, you can go to school and you can learn all about, like you said, harmony for days, for fucking years, rhythm, but there isn't a school on earth that will teach you about melody. It's like,
you got to find that for yourself, man. And when guys ask me, they say, hey, man, I recently had a lesson with a new Patreon member. I'm very blessed. We got a great Patreon community and a new member joined. He goes, I want to be a better blues player. I want to be a better country player, a better rock player. I see you play all these genres. And I just go, man, how do I do it? And I'm like, how much country do you listen to?
Yeah, yeah.
What are your top 5 favorite country artists?
Yeah.
Okay, from them, what's your top 5 favorite songs? What's your favorite albums? Who are the session players playing on those records? Because if you don't live and breathe that genre and you want to learn country because you saw John 5 do some chicken picking, you're not going to be a good country player.
Yeah.
Like John 5 obviously loves country on a level that people don't realize. Because when I hear him play, I'll hear him play moments of Black Mountain Rag or some of these old fiddle tunes that I grew up playing. I'm like, this he's put in the time to study that genre on a level deeper than the cliches of the language. Okay, so now you have to apply that to rock and roll, right? Yeah. When I say, hey, man, who's your favorite guitar player? And everybody goes, oh, man, I don't know. I'm like, well, you don't know. Yeah. Now, it doesn't have to be forever, but who's your favorite guitar player right now, today? And it's like, you don't know the answer to that, you've got a bigger problem because you're probably not listening to enough music. I think you want to be a better musician, stop going through Instagram and making notes of what you think people want to click on and like. Because it was Polyphia stuff, flip tap, slap stuff that was a hot thing. It was the neo soul thing that was a hot thing. And then it's the Billy Strings thing. Everybody's trying to play flat top acoustic guitar. It's like, man, these are fads. What's not going to be a fad is Billy Strings playing it because he's not doing it for the clicks and the likes, right? Yeah. Like Polyphia is not doing it to get more clicks and likes. They just got the clicks and likes because what they're doing is a very authentic thing to them, right? Yes. And I think looking in that level of artistry is something that unfortunately TikTok brain doesn't encourage.
No.
Right? Like if because we ended as lovers come out today, would it make a splash at all?
No. No, I don't think
We
it
don't
would.
know the answer to that, right? Like immediately you say no, and it's like, why the hell did Chris Stapleton's cover of Tennessee Whiskey launch his career?
Mm.
For all practical purposes, it shouldn't, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But it did because
Yeah.
the musicality's there, right? Like we don't know what's going to click and what's not, but I can tell you what I have found for myself. I can tell you what I've found for myself is going through and studying algorithms. That's not ever helped me.
Yeah.
You know, like you always can see it when a new product comes out. Every gear influencer has the product and they all make the review of it on the same 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And then you never hear from it again.
Yeah.
Versus a product that is genuinely awesome. The UA aux, like I'm looking at the Universal Audio aux.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing a video on this today, but
No.
everybody's using it, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a product that stands on its own merits. Look behind me. It's like diesel amps and Bogner amps that came out 15 years ago,
Yeah.
and they're still there, right?
Yeah.
That's because it's not a gimmick. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's not
Yes,
like
yes, yeah.
flavor of the week, right? So
Yeah.
like that kind of mentality to me, I think if you really want to become a better player and a better musician, is looking at those next levels of attention in your own playing, in your taste buds, what music connects with you, like what are you learning because you love it versus what are you learning because you think it's going to make somebody else love you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think never a truer word has been spoken. I remember having lessons with a real jazz guy, and I thought because I needed to learn jazz, and I'd go back every week, and it dawned on me after about 6 weeks. I sat down at the lesson. He's like, "Right, how'd you get on with the things?" I was like, "Yeah, no, I kind of did it." I said, "But I said, I don't think this is for me." He's like, "Why is that?" I said, "Well, we've been having lessons for 6 weeks, and I haven't listened to a single jazz record. I haven't listened to a single jazz song." And I just don't, I'm not connecting with the notes. I'm not connecting with the sounds, the feels. I mean, this was like 10, 15 years ago. And then one day, sometime last year, November, I put on the Joe Pass Ella Fitzgerald record. I just listened to that for days, and it's just fucking magic.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now I'm kind of leaning into actually listening to the sounds and enjoying those really fucking tense notes that he puts in, those lovely passing chords that he always puts in. I mean, and that's the step that you need to take before you start doing the learning, is the listening.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've kind of put a bow on that, I'll give you part 2 of my answer.
Okay.
Part 2, if you want to get better as a player, you got to learn how to practice.
Well, that was going to be my next question, but go on.
So misconception is learning and practicing is the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I get in hot water because I'm like, yeah, you don't practice it slow.
Yeah.
People be like, oh, man, you have to practice it slow. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
If you practice something slow that's meant to be played at 180 BPM, you're never going to play it at 180 BPM.
Yeah.
Learning something and practicing something are 2 different things. Learning something is learning where it is on the fretboard.
Yeah.
Learning picking direction, getting familiar with all the things that make it. That's learning. Like that's the acquisition of the knowledge to travel across this piece of music, where the thirds are, where the fifths are. It's like all the things, picking direction, everything that it takes. That's the learning of it. When it's time to practice, you've got to practice musically.
Yeah.
And if the piece of music is played at 155 BPM and you're practicing at 110, like here's the enemy right here. This little metronome. I love my metronome. I've had this metronome since I was in high school, right? And it won't die. It just keeps on clicking. So if somebody is trying to do something here, right?
Yeah.
And they tell me they're practicing it here. I'm like, there is literally 70 BPM between those spots.
Yeah.
And the physicality of the hand is so different, even though you're still alternate picking.
Yeah.
Everything is so different at those 2 tempos that practicing at that slow speed and clicking it up 4 notches you're eventually going to get to 120
Mm.
and be like, I can't play it any faster. And that's because you're trying to play it at 125 with the
Yeah.
muscles that it does at 110. And you
Mm.
need to practice using the muscles and the tensions and the things that function at high tempo. So
Yeah.
to me, my practice regime is like, if I'm going to play freaking, something nuts, like last year touring, we covered the old Steve Morse tune, Too Many Notes. That was
Oh
in our
yeah,
live
yeah.
set that we
Yeah.
would cover. And that's not an easy song to play,
No.
especially on alternate pick. It's really a handful. And if you're going to play that tune, you got to practice it close to the record speed and essentially buff out the
Mm.
errors at
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah.
And that way, when you're practicing it, you're practicing what it's like to actually drive at that tempo.
Yeah.
And that's completely different, right? So learning how to practice, learning the difference between learning and acquiring knowledge and application of knowledge, those are two completely different things. Because if you're never going to try to play something fast and your goal is to play something fast, and if that is your goal, like let's say you're going to work on an Albert Lee solo, which is going to be screaming,
Yeah. Good luck. Off you go.
yeah. You're going to be so terrified of the tempo, you won't be able to play musically.
Yeah.
You've got to be comfortable at that tempo.
Yeah.
Like that's just got to be, and that's something that I think isn't reserved for the elite. That's something that's reserved for the people that have a bit of fearlessness
Yeah.
to go for it. And not only go for it, but have a tenacity to stay at that practice regiment with it sounding like a bag of shit
Bag of shit. Yeah.
for a long time
Yeah.
until you buff out the errors. But when it's buffed out, you're used to playing at that tempo.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you want to be a better player, you got to learn how to practice.
Yeah.
Those same philosophies can be applied into melody as well. You want to be a more melodic player and all you're doing is learning guitar solos, you got to get to that next level. You got to learn what the singer sings.
Yeah.
You got to be able to play the thing that the violin plays. You got to think musically. Don't think guitar player.
Guitarily.
Don't think guitarily.
Yeah.
Think musically, right? Like the
Yes.
guitar is just the vehicle. And I think a lot of my perspective comes from guitar as a second instrument to me. Like I'm a mandolin player first. I grew up
Okay.
playing. Yeah. Here's I keep this little tape, this little cassette tape on my desk. This is me and my cousin and my granddad.
Oh, cool.
And we were probably 10 years old,
Yeah.
maybe
All right.
9 or 10 when this was taken, maybe a little bit older. I don't know, somewhere in that 9 or 10 range. And I keep it on my desk just as, a bit of inspiration, a bit of memory, and a bit of like hearing those old lessons in my ears. My granddad didn't have a sense of theory,
Yeah.
but it was about making the notes clean and playing something, playing it soulful, like things that are more existential than that's an A flat on the second beat of the measure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think you've already alluded to it, but do you think there's anything that isn't being taught either in schools or by teachers or on YouTube that really should be?
Yeah, it's all this shit because
It's
it's
all the
hard.
same shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just if I made this video on YouTube, it would tank.
Yeah.
And I don't say that out of like old man yelling at a cloud. It's just when I talk about these things in videos, a lot of times people will be like, "You talked for 8 minutes before playing the guitar," and I'm just like, "I'm literally telling you how to do it and how I got there." But you're too hungry for TikTok that you can't understand that I'm literally giving it to you.
You've got gold here and you're just not listening.
You just don't want to listen.
Do you think that is indicative of how social media has just shortened people's attention spans and they're not they're not really interested in listening? They just want to watch.
I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's the case
But
because
the thing is, things like long form videos are also on the rise. So people
right.
So like podcasts, like hour-long, 2-hour-long, 3-hour-long podcasts are still like raking in views and listens, but then so are 30-second clips. There's
Yeah. I think now we're in the ocean of it all, and whatever you want is out there. It's just a matter of, like, you want to take an hour-long podcast about Destiny 2, the video game. Yeah, I can find one. You want a 15 30-second clip on which weapon to use in Destiny 2, I can find you one. Like
Yeah.
now we're just at the point where everything's everywhere.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's what it is be aware of what you're looking for before you go out there and start hunting. Because if you type in how to be a better guitar player, you can get 50,000 different answers, probably 49,000 people that I don't think are good guitar players.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, I think too, you know, one of the things that I think the only thing that maybe irks me about the current fad of the way creators are making content, and I'm being very specific with that, but this is an irk for me. I don't like, and I'm not going to name any names because that's distasteful.
Sure.
I don't like really getting into somebody's content, maybe seeing their videos, be like, God, this guy's great. Holy crap, you know? And then I see all this stuff, and then I finally see them play live at NAMM, and I go, son of a bitch, you mimed everything. Yeah. You didn't play, you can't play any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Or you're playing at a 60% level of what you're selling that's 100% fact.
Yeah.
I don't like that. That bothers me.
Sure.
Because I have been blessed enough to have seen Van Halen 5 times.
Oh,
it's better than anything you ever heard of. And he's not playing the same solos. He's improvising. You know, I've been blessed to see Derek Trucks play a handful of times. Jimmy Herring.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I trade solos with Eric Johnson or trade solos with some of the guys that I look up to. Brent Mason. It's like, I can look at Brent and I have no idea what's about to come out of that amplifier, but it's going to be one of the greatest things that I've ever heard.
He's fucking off the rails, that guy. Just
and Andy Timmons, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys that just are on another planet. They're in another universe of excellence. And by that I mean it's truly excellent to sit in a room with them as they play their guitar, right?
Yeah.
So when I watch videos under the guise that this is what a lot of people sound like, and the reality is, oh man, they went in there and edited it and moved it, touched it, and created this perfect take. And it's like, man, that sucks. You know, that bums me out. However, I'm not going to name the people that I've seen that done that, but I will name the ones that are even better live. And that's like, you know, like the guys that I just mentioned, Matteo Mancuso, Mateus Sasato. Like Mateus Sasato's the real deal. Greg Koch is the real deal. If you see Greg
I
Koch,
spoke to him last week. He's amazing. Such a cool guy.
If you see him play on a video, it's pretty good. And there might be something in there that just makes you shake your head. But when you see it live in person and you see 90 minutes of him going for it and landing everything, you just go, my God, this is the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's something that's really important to anyone out there watching it. If it's too clean and too good to be true, it probably is. And if you notice a lot of my videos, I'd say 85% of my videos are all iPhone camera phone.
Yeah.
And I do that with purpose so you can hear the strings of the
You
instrument.
can hear
That
the
way
scratch of the pick. And
you're like, oh, well, he didn't go in there and fix it. Like, this is good, bad, or ugly. You could think I'm the worst guitar player on the planet, which is fine. But at least you know that it's really me. And I didn't go in there and like
just nudge that a little bit. I was a little bit off. Do you
or
think,
like or nudge it a lot.
Yeah. Do you think that there is almost a fear of making a mistake because it's going to end up online? People are going to judge you, and it's like, so then you're kind of, you might, if I don't know, let's say you're improvising, you're on one of your shows, and you're like, do I want to step out that far because I don't want it to be videoed and filmed, put up, and then be criticized?
I mean, that's
like,
it.
Fuck it.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're talking about that edge, that true edge, the end of it, of I know I can do this, or man,
Shall I?
Do I go for it? That's what made Jeff Beck Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
He's the guitar player's guitar player.
Yeah.
A lot of people say he's the greatest guitar player of all time. Now, I don't know what that wording means, but if there's a top 5 greatest of all time, Jeff Beck ain't number 5.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And now I challenge anyone to go through and just sift through the first 30 seconds of all the Jeff Beck solos that are out there that are live.
Yeah.
40% of them are going to have some kind of mistake or flub or what we would call an imperfection, a
Yeah.
warp, whether it be a hand noise or like but the other 60% are so great.
Mm.
And so with that ratio, it shows you that he lived on the edge. He lived
Yeah.
on the absolute edge of his ability every time he played,
Yeah.
right? And so that fear, high risk, high reward in a live room, when the audience can feel that.
Mm.
I mean, think about Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore.
Mm.
Like that's some of the greatest. Think about Wes Montgomery and Wynton Kelly smoking at the half note.
Yeah.
Like these are live moments where there might be something that's not perfect. You know, the G3. I remember. You know, it's like there's a little rub and it's very minuscule, but at the beginning of Zap, there's it's not the cleanest that Eric ever played it.
Yeah.
But that just shows to me that they didn't go in and fix it.
Yeah.
And so the next 7 minutes of him absolutely torching that song at a level that's unknown to me, it's like that really happened.
Yeah.
That really happened. So this fear that you're talking about, it's a two-sided thing. It means that, you can sit in your studio and on Logic or whatever. I've got all the devices here. We all do. It's like, God, you can do it on a freaking iPad now.
Yeah.
To edit crap out of anything. You could go in there and nudge and move and take away all that risk, but all you've done is eliminated the humanity out of it to a point where it's like now you're trying to sell risk and danger. Especially as a rock guitar player.
Yeah.
As a rock guitar player, I've got to have risk and danger.
Mm.
I've got to.
Yeah.
I mean, as a blues guitar player, I've got to have risk and danger. There has to be that because if you're laying back and playing everything safe, it just does not sound cool. It just does not sound like the genre should sound.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to sound like perfection means that, because if I am making house music or I'm making, a Skrillex record, right? I need those to be inhumanly gridded. I need those remixes to be, because that's the nature of that music, right?
Yeah.
I think there's some metal that would require that level of automation where you'd want to make sure the kicks are automated,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But again, you can't go too far down the rabbit hole of that, or it loses its swag. Like we saw Killswitch Engage on Shiprock. They were one of the headliners. They had no laptops, and they just went out there and just played. Just like 5 dudes just went on stage, and they were the best band on the boat.
Damn.
Not because of the laptops. They just sounded huge.
Yeah.
They sounded dangerous, and it also was so slick and so perfect that when those things were landing, you're like, there's not an assisted. They don't have training wheels on there. It's really happening, right? So the audience can feel that, and they can see that, and they can sense that. So it's like you end up with these magical moments throughout musical history that we all revere, right? Like Eric Johnson, Austin City Limits, right? It's like, that's like one of the ones, right? And like, these things happen all the time. Live at Ronnie Scott's, Jeff Beck, right? Like it's one of these like monumental, you had to be there, right? Like the Zeppelin stuff live. Like I think Jimmy Page is a great example of this. Like he's one of the sloppiest guitar players of all time. He's one of the greatest guitar players of all time. Like execution didn't equate excellence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really important, is to remember it's like, what are you trying to say? What are you saying? And if you're timid, the intro to Custard Pie is not going to be cool if you play it safe. It's just going to sound like a Shell Branch song.
I mean, I saw it or I heard it. It was Marty Friedman was talking about playing live on stage, and it's like, who the fuck wants to come to one of my shows and see me play this perfectly? I want to be on the fucking edge, and it's got to be a show. People have paid $20, $30, $40, $50 to come see me play. I've got to put on a show. And if that means that I've got to sacrifice some technique, then so be it.
And if you want the CD, go listen to the CD. Yeah, I mean, it's there. But if that was the case, live records wouldn't be as popular as they are.
Yeah, like, can he do it live? Yeah, of course he can do it live, but...
people are listening to that, they need that. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's why, the Carlos Santana can still headline Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're not going to go hear the album. It's
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
see the show.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that that experience of seeing it as well is just priceless. I mean, I just booked tickets to see Jerry Douglas. He's coming over here in the summer.
Oh, that's beautiful. This is
And
a
I'm just like, son of a bitch, man. Yeah.
bass player that plays with Jerry Douglas is a guy named Daniel Kimbrough. Daniel and I went to University of
Oh,
Tennessee.
no way.
We're great friends. We've toured together. Daniel
Yeah.
and I have opened for so many acts. Daniel and I toured. We were opening for Freak Kitchen.
Right.
We used to open for Morgable. We did another one where we were opening for. It was either Mike Landau at Lincoln Theater or it was the Aristocrats at Lincoln
Yeah.
Theater. But Daniel is great. He's my musical director for the Woodshed Guitar
Cool.
Experience. So
Cool.
when you go to that show, just go up to Daniel and be like, "Hey, man, Andy Wood," and he'll
Yeah.
just probably just shake his head and walk off.
Oh, that guy's back again.
Oh, that guy.
Okay. Is there and it's like in terms of practice, what does it look like these days?
I don't even know.
No.
I sat down this morning and I like to be inspired. Oftentimes I want to throw credit where credit is due. It sounds like I bash the social media thing. I don't bash it. I'll be inspired by that. And I actually saw a Tim Henson video and I wanted to learn some licks from it. So I sat down with it and stole me some licks.
Yeah.
I think Tim is a really great player. Tim will mime stuff.
Yeah.
I like the video I was watching was him in his studio. It was obviously mimed because when I slowed it down, fingers off the fretboard and it's still ringing or whatever. It's not
Yeah.
bad. I think Tim is a really creative player. And he's using technology to serve the purpose that he needs to use it. Like, so be it. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying some people get a get out of jail free card or some people don't, but you can go see Polyphia live and they play their stuff. Yeah, they use a laptop. Yeah, whatever. They've had shows where the laptop goes out. Like, whatever. But Tim had some really crazy stuff, and I was like, "Ooh, that's neat." I like the way that he was, tapping up to something and sliding this finger back.
Yeah.
So that inspired me, and then I got to being like, "What if I tap with this finger and go back with a walking motion?" So it inspired me to find a new avenue of something that I didn't have before, and then an hour later, I had a new toolkit, new color in the
New
palette.
paintbrush. Yeah.
New paintbrush, right? So that can easily flip to something as old as Stairway to Heaven, or another one I was playing on was Misty Mountain Hop, and that intro is such a weird intro because I hear it as ba da 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 da, and when the drums come in, I hear it as ba da 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 da. It's like so I hear it kind of.
Where is that? Where's the one?
Where's the one? It's like, but that's the mastery of John Bonham, right? Like everybody, rock and roll.
Rock and roll. Yes.
Right? It's the end of three.
I think so. Yeah. But how many gigs have you gone on? You played that, and they've started it.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Papa.
Yeah,
And it's, well,
like,
so
all right,
when
okay.
that happens, I just know that I'm going to fix it for them and just let them. But yeah, these types of things are really the source of my practice. And before that, for the past 2 years, my practice revolved around finding my statement, less about trying to emulate anybody else. And it's like this new record, the name of the new record is Charisma. And, working on that and finding my statement in that was my practice. Yes. It was like, it's like I was coming out of pandemic, lost my dad, lost my grandfather.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I was like, it kind of hit me in a multitude of ways. I was like, man, if I die tomorrow, am I known as a guy from Instagram that can play guitar good? Or if I die tomorrow, I was like, well, I'll be known as the guy that played for Rascal Flatts. It's like, and things, for as blessed as these paths on my career have been, that's not what my statement is, And so I had to take a really hard, difficult look in the mirror and be like, what's your statement, dude?
Yeah.
What is it that you've got to say? And so practice to me kind of scoped out from look what I can do with my hands to like, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
Like this is the number one thing that I've been saying at clinics for a year. We went over to Italy in November and did a series of clinics, and everybody knows who the Avengers are and
Yeah.
Thanos,
Yeah.
Infinity Gauntlet. So I always say, man, if you have the Infinity Gauntlet of music, and you have perfect timing, perfect harmony, you have all perfect tone, everything,
Yeah.
you've got every stone in there, and you can do anything. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And people kind of just sit back and like, because everybody's got a benchmark. If I could just play this thing that I could
Yeah.
just do the thing that I've heard. I'm like, get that out of your head. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like when we're trading Crossroads, blues jam at the local pub on Tuesday night, and
Yeah.
there's guys taking a solo. What are you going to play?
Yeah.
That's practice.
That's soul searching.
Because that puts you in a mindset to practice creativity. Creativity is just like your harmony and your timing and your technique.
Yeah.
If you practice it, you're never going to be creative.
Yeah, I tell you,
It's like you just wake up and you're just blessed with it, and like, oh man, he's so good, really blessed as a songwriter. You go, he wrote 314 songs that year.
Yeah.
This is the one that you heard, and you think he just woke up and just did it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
no. Yeah. It's like it's that thing that I think people need to put on themselves and go, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with all these pedals? Am I going to get another pedal? What am I going to do
Another
with
board?
Yeah, it's like, what am I going to do with the tapping lick? It's like it's got to serve a greater purpose than the tapping lick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I was having lessons. I just got to a point where my alternate picking I just couldn't get it above a certain ceiling, and I went for some lessons with the guy, and he said, "You're holding your hand wrong. You're holding your pick wrong." And I was like, "Okay, oh, fine, yeah, okay." And so I had lessons with him for about a year, maybe 18 months, and it was just technique lessons. That's all we did, just technique. Come in, click on, just technique, and it like leveled my fucking technique up. No problems. Like, this is fucking brilliant. And I was at a blues jam. I was a gig or something, and somebody turned to me and was like, just do an improv solo, like someone put a snare drum through or something. And I'm like, quick, do a solo. And I fucking sucked. And I realized I hadn't practiced improvising for a year, 18 months, and just assumed that I could just pull it out the bag, and I couldn't. And I came back that day. See this green strap here? I came home, I tuned it to E flat, and just started playing Hendrix. Put on some Hendrix records and just started playing and jamming, just like I did when I was, 17, 18.
I mean, that's the thing. You got to practice creativity. You got to. And when you ask me what my practice is, it's like, yeah, man, there'll be a little nugget of technique, but man, I haven't practiced technique for years. I mean, and when I say that, I don't want it to sound like I don't use technique or work on it. But what I do mean by that is, like, let's take that Tim Henson example because it's at the top of my brain. I was working on it last night. I saw it, and in 20 minutes I was doing it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm God's gift to guitar. That's not what that means. What that means
it's pretty close.
What that means is, like, my technique is at a level to where it's like that doesn't take a lot of translating for me to, like, especially if it's a diatonic lick.
Yeah.
If it's something where everything's in key and there's no outside notes or twists or turns, or if it's something where there's not a lot of finger style, like I've been transcribing some Matteo Mancuso stuff lately. The reason is his technique it's awful for picking. So I've been working up hybrid patterns and combination of hybrid and middle finger stuff. I've been working on this technique stuff. So it's like the Tim Henson thing was a guy that plays guitar like I play guitar. So transferring that was like drawing a straight line. So, okay, there it is. Right. Versus if I'm going to work on a Brent Mason solo, he plays finger style, or a Jerry Reed solo, or someone that's playing something in the way that I don't play the guitar. Right.
Yeah.
I like to steal a lot of things from slide players. So like that requires me to do a lot of things that I don't have a slide on my hand to make it emulate it. Right.
Yeah.
These kind of things are my practice regiments to initially be the spark At the end of that practice time, I'm using that technique within a song that I'm playing along with whipping post, and I'm trying to use that technique in it. You see what I'm saying? It's like at the end of my practice, it ends with like I'm playing one of my tunes and I'm going to put that lick in there or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what it should be. It shouldn't be, I've learned lick X. Great, I'll pack that away, put it in a box, and I won't come back to it again. It's like, well, how am I going to incorporate that? Do I have to change anything? Do I have to get rid of that little bit there? Do I have to shuffle that? Do I have to squick on that? Do I have to slow that bit down just to make it into my own?
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool. It's if you had $1,000, would you go and get a guitar or an amp?
At this point in my life, amp.
What are you
only reason I say that is I with this lovely guy right here. This is something that I designed with Sir, 10 years ago, and now it's like it's a very successful line of instruments. But it came out of solving the problem. It's like that's the guitar. If I only have one guitar on the planet,
that's the one.
I'm good, right? Like I'm good. I got the thing that can kind of let me do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say that I don't want a Strat or a Les Paul. It's like, but for $1,000, I'm probably going to hunt down some kind of little Princeton or Tweed or something like that. Something's got some character.
Yeah.
For $1,000, I mean, I might even get 2 of those Van Halen 15-watt amps.
Yes, yeah, they're killer little things.
The little icons.
Yeah.
Come in stereo.
Killer.
It's like that's $1,000 well spent.
Yeah.
But if you were asking me years ago when I didn't have the endorsements and the free gear and stuff like that, if you were asking me years ago, I would have spent it on the guitar.
Okay. Well, situations change, but yeah, that's cool. Have you got any plans? Are you coming over to the UK, Europe again?
Man, I really want to. I just was over there in November. So it looks like my next Europe trip might end up being the Guitar Summit thing in Germany.
Okay.
That's not for sure yet. Obviously I juggle things with Gary LeVox and the Rascal Flatts guys, based on touring with that as well. But I definitely want to come back over under my own trio. And there's plans, to do some touring with that, and I'm wondering if it's even not just like doing a maybe a G3 style tour with some of the guys from Woodshed and making that be kind of fun.
Yeah, that'd be killer. That'd be cool. Well, if you ever over the UK, I owe you a couple of beers or a case of beers. So it would be good to hang out and meet up in real life.
Yeah, man.
Cool. Well, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I really do appreciate it, and I know
really
how
great.
busy you are, and I'm sure you get asked to do these kinds of things all the time. So
I love doing them, man. It's like I can get up here and get on my little soapbox and yell out at the world. Practice creativity. I want to know everyone's statement, right? Like it's cool that the world has another cover of Tornado of Souls, but reality is like Marty ain't retiring today. Chico ain't retiring today. Those guys are gonna be playing that solo on stage. What's your statement? What are you gonna do?
Yes, that's cool. Well, I do really appreciate it, and yes, I'll thank you again, and we'll speak online, I guess.
All right, Tim, take it easy.
Thank you so much. Cheers, Andy. Thank you very much.